Good evening. We are broadcasting tonight with a singular focus, dedicating our entire program to a story that has consumed Washington and rippled across world capitals this month. We are talking about the Epstein files, that massive 3 million page release of documents that has finally seen the light of day. But tonight, we're not just looking at the broad strokes. We're drilling down into the specific, often complicated, and fiercely debated links between the files and one man, President Donald Trump. For years, the relationship between Donald Trump and Epstein has been the subject of intense speculation, conspiracy theory, and political mudslinging. When the Epstein Transparency Act was signed into law late last year, many believed it would be the smoking gun that either confirmed the worst rumors or finally put them to rest. Now that the documents are out, the reality, as is so often the case, is far more detailed and far less black and white than the headlines suggest. Let's begin by understanding the sheer scale of what we're looking at. When the Department of Justice released this tranche of documents in late January 2026, it wasn't a trickle, it was a flood, 3 million pages. And within that ocean of paper, the name Donald Trump appears thousands of times. Some counts put the number of hits in the database at over 38,000. Now, that number alone sounds damning. It sounds like a daily, intimate correspondence. But context is absolutely vital here. We've had a team of analysts combing through these pages, and what they found is that the vast majority of these mentions are not personal emails or flight logs. They're news clippings. Epstein and his staff were obsessive archivists. They saved everything. Every time Donald Trump was mentioned in a newspaper that Epstein read, it was clipped and filed. Every Google alert that pinged with Trump's name was saved. So thousands of these links are simply evidence that Epstein was reading the same news as the rest of the country during Trump's rise as a real estate mogul and later as a political figure. However, once you strip away the news clippings and the noise, there remains a core of substantive documents that tell a real story about the relationship between these two men. And that story has two very distinct chapters, the friendship of the 1990s and the bitterness that followed. One of the most significant revelations in this new release comes from a document that dates back to the very beginning of the legal scrutiny against Epstein. It's a summary of an FBI interview with Michael Reiter. For those who don't know the name, Reiter was the police chief in Palm Beach, Florida, during the initial investigations against Epstein in the mid-2000s. In this 19 interview, Reiter describes a phone call he received from Donald Trump in 2006. This was right when the first criminal charges were being prepared against Epstein. According to Reiter, Trump called him personally to congratulate him. He reportedly told the police chief, "Thank goodness you're stopping him." Trump went on to say that everyone in their social circle knew what Epstein was doing, and he explicitly described Ghislaine Maxwell as evil. This phone call is critical for a few reasons. First, it challenges the narrative that Trump was oblivious to Epstein's nature. He claimed to the police chief that the behavior was an open secret. Second, it corroborates Trump's long-standing public defense that he had cut ties with Epstein long before the arrest. Reiter told the FBI that during that same call, Trump mentioned he had thrown Epstein out of his Mar-a-Lago club. The reason given was that Epstein had acted inappropriately toward a young girl, some reports say a staff member's daughter, at the club. Trump told the chief he got the hell out of there when he realized what was happening. This interview summary is perhaps the strongest piece of evidence in the files that supports the former president's assertion that he distanced himself from Epstein while other elites continue to embrace him. But the files also contain darker, more difficult material. Included in the release are FBI summaries of tips and leads that came in over the years. One of these documents details an allegation from a woman identified as Jane Doe, who claimed she was raped by Trump at the age of 13. This allegation mirrors a lawsuit that was filed and then dropped in 2016. It's important to be precise here. The Department of Justice, in releasing these files, included a specific disclaimer regarding these types of documents. They stated that many of the tips received, particularly those submitted right before the 2020 election, were investigated and found to be unfounded or sensationalist. The current Justice Department, which is operating under the Trump administration, has made it clear that they view these specific allegations as non-credible. There is no new evidence in these files that corroborates the Jane Doe claim beyond the existence of the complaint itself. Then we have the flight logs. This has been the centerpiece of the Epstein flight obsession for years. The new documents confirm what we largely already knew, but with more granularity. They confirm that Donald Trump flew on Epstein's plane, the Lolita Express, on several occasions in the 1990s. These flights were primarily between New York and Palm Beach, Florida. However, and this is a crucial distinction that the president's defenders are highlighting, the new files do not contain flight logs or passenger manifests placing Donald Trump on flights to Little St. James, Epstein's private island in the U.S. Virgin Islands. While other high-profile figures are documented making that trip, the paper trail for Trump appears to stay within the continental United States. Interestingly, the files also give us a window into what Epstein thought of Donald Trump privately, and the picture is complicated. In some emails to his associates, Epstein disparages Trump. He calls him a maniac and seems to view him with a mix of amusement and contempt. But in other correspondence later, Epstein seems to defend him. In an email to a former Obama administration lawyer, Epstein writes to the Democrats that they should stop demonizing Trump. What this suggests is that Epstein, ever the manipulator, viewed Trump as he viewed everyone else, as a piece on a chessboard. He wasn't necessarily a loyal friend or a sworn enemy. He was a powerful figure to be managed, discussed, and potentially used. The lack of a consistent conspirator tone in these private emails is something that legal analysts are pointing to as evidence that Trump was not part of the core criminal enterprise. But if the legal fallout for Donald Trump personally has been minimal, the political fallout for his administration has been nothing short of catastrophic. This release has triggered a civil war within the Republican Party and the cabinet. The most immediate casualty appears to be Howard Lutnick, the Secretary of Commerce. While the president has weathered the storm, Secretary Lutnick is currently drowning in it. The files revealed that Lutnick's relationship with Epstein was far more extensive than he had previously disclosed to the Senate or the public. During his confirmation hearings, the narrative was that Lutnick had tangential contact. The files tell a different story. They detail meetings, scheduling emails, and a level of social integration that contradicts the casual acquaintance defense. This has led to a furious reaction from Capitol Hill. We're seeing a rare bipartisan coalition forming, with Democrats demanding his resignation and key Republicans remaining conspicuously silent or offering tepid support. The feeling in Washington is that Lutnick has become a liability, a light rod that keeps the Epstein story in the news cycle and attached to the White House. And this brings us to the broader political war that has erupted over the handling of these files. You might expect that a release this size would satisfy the transparency advocates. Instead, it has enraged them. Two congressmen, Democrat Ro Khanna of California and Republican Thomas Massie of Kentucky, have formed an unlikely alliance to attack the Department of Justice's handling of this release. They're arguing that despite the 3 million pages we have, the Justice Department is still holding back. Representative Massie has been particularly vocal. He's gone on record accusing the DOJ of withholding roughly 50% of the relevant documents. He claims that the redactions are excessive and are being used to protect powerful individuals who are still alive and influential. In a statement that shocked many in his own party, Massie referred to the current government as the Epstein administration, implying that the cover-up is continuing even now under a president who signed the transparency law. This is a remarkable turn of events. You have a Republican congressman accusing a Republican administration's DOJ of running a protection racket for elites. Massie and Khanna are vowing to use their congressional subpoena power to force the release of the remaining files and to get unredacted versions of the documents that have been blacked out. So, where does this leave us? For Donald Trump, the individual, the release is a mixed bag that ultimately tilts in his favor legally, if not socially. The everyone knew phone call supports his timeline of events. The lack of island flight logs protects him from the most damaging accusations. The DOJ's dismissal of the unverified tips